Hello, Council. Thanks for making time today, Friday, for a weekend. Hopefully I'll give you some time after today to spend some time going through the information, coming back into next week for more dialogue with you, answer your questions. I'm just going to provide an overview or a narrative from the CAO representing the administration. Then I'll put it over to the Director of Corporate Services to go into more detail through a PowerPoint presentation, and she'll explain process or typical procedure from there. So just a narrative, and then we can get into the real business. Council had a glimpse of the 2022-2025 strategic plan and the key outcomes of the plan at the November 17th A&P meeting. Administration operations is driven by strategy, service levels, operational projects associated with maintaining and improving service levels, operational projects that supports the strategic plan, and capital projects. The 2026 budget was developed associated with the 2022 to 2025 strategic plan, which included a connected community that fosters a sense of belonging, a robust and adaptable economy, respect for our environment, and provide strong leadership. The 2026 operational budget demonstrates both decreases and increases, with the budget showing a net operational increase. The town is rated strongly on strategy development and execution. What this means is that what is planned for is what often is executed by your administration. The budget is reflective of developing a new council strategic plan, a continuation of the fire master plan, updates to such plans as the Power of Place Community Economic Development Strategy, and a council committee's review. The town has developed an in-depth fleet management plan that is inclusive of all departments using fleet condition criteria, which is supported by council policy. The completion of the Napoleon South residential and commercial development will be completed in 2026, as will the Aquatic Center modernization project, slated for completion in the spring. Administration is recommending the continuation of infrastructure investment with a traditional annual capital budget allocation and the dedication to reserves. There is indication by the provincial government that there will be challenging budgets ahead, in which we will look to for adequate infrastructure funding. In which we look for proper infrastructure funding. Council will learn more about the LGFF, the Local Government Fiscal Framework, which is the main infrastructure funding for municipalities in Alberta, provided by the provincial governments. As the LGFF funding is reliant on provincial revenues, we can anticipate that those grants to lessen proportionately over the next few years. There's a couple of things that comes to mind when we went through the budget, through the work of the SLT. Number one, the success of the grants regarding the Aquatic Center project. The town is in a position to offset these pressures if necessary. However, the lack of success of grant funding does contribute to the town's financial pressures. Number two, the industrial subdivision financial plan includes the attraction of investment into the subdivision. There's indication that growth in this area will occur in 2026. The risk is a requirement of either reserves or taxes or both to pay for those debt payments. With number three, with less infrastructure funds available, municipalities are required to become more and more self-reliant of funding infrastructure projects, including that of community facilities, which were largely developed through provincial partnerships. Number four, Napoleon South development is attractive to the market and will be a success for the community once completed. There will be references within the budget discussions about planning for what is next, hopefully through private investment, rather than the town required to utilize its capital to upfront residential development. The budget reflects increases in service levels as the Napoleon South development comes online. From an organizational perspective, the organizational culture remains strong, as the preliminary review of the 2025 cultural assessment shows that 90% of those responding to the survey feel the town is a better place to work compared to 2 years ago. So that trend is still going up. The health and safety audit remains within the 90%. According to the town's benefits program, the town had a 2.21% turnover rate in 2024-2025. The town will be required to learn more about the labor market over the next year or two, as opportunities for employees will continue to increase. Through the assertiveness of the SLT team, they are in the process of finalizing a corporate succession plan for the managerial levels. Council will be introduced to these assessments and plans in probably the first quarter of 2026. The operational budget increases are reflected to salary increases through COLA to maintain a 50% percentile compared to market. Although there's no formal policy directive that is to be maintained, it is recommended for council to maintain this level of compensation for the employees. Council has traditionally been in the position to determine if and the amount of COLA provided to the staff. Administration will outline what operational projects are funded and projects that remain unfunded. As the discussions are moving to the capital budget, council will receive project details of what is funded and what remains unfunded. Administration is committing to some service level reviews, and this is not all inclusive as we get into the year. Such things as postage expense review, the MORE lease program, council's committee review, the fire services review through the fire master plan, the quality management plan associated with inspections of buildings in our community, and of course the franchise fee review. So that's my story so far, Mayor and Council. I'll put it over to the Director of Corporate Services to go into more detail.
Thank you. Okay, so before you do have your budget binders, which do have some information in it. At the very beginning, you kind of have a 5-year operating summary to go forward all the revenues and expenses for the next 5 years. Inside each tab, you'll see what's called a costing center summary. We did actually add in a new document this year as well. So if you go to a costing center summary and go to the 3rd page, you'll actually see some historic budget comparison by budget year. So what this has, it has 2024 budget year plus the 24 actuals, 25 budget year plus the current actuals to date, and then the 2026 proposed budget, just so you kind of can see a full picture of each kind of budget year. So what we're going to do now is we're going to focus and go through the PowerPoint. We're not necessarily going to follow along with the binder directly, but please, as we go through each slide, please ask any questions that you guys may have. Okay. So in the first slide, we always do just show our vision and our mission, just as a guiding principle of where we start and how we treat all the information and put it back out to the community is through these lenses. And same with the values, as the CAO kind of talked about in his opening. The values is how we want to portray ourselves to the public and to other organizations and things like that. So the strategic plan document is one of the largest documents that administration uses as a way to kind of coordinate and establish a starting point for all the budgets. So we are kind of on the ending point of our strategic plan. So it's just kind of a point in here just to remind everyone of those high-level notes. We do have strategic plan coming up in January for the next calendar year. And so some of our budget objectives this year is that we continue to build on the strategic foundation that has already been in place with previous council while aligning the priorities of yourselves, of the newly elected council. Much of our work remains centered on supporting a community that is growing, changing, and looking for a balance between stability and progress. Housing remains a key focus as we encourage development that offers choice and supports residents at different stages of life. At the same time, we continue to enhance recreational opportunities, recognizing how important they are for community connection, wellness, and quality of life. Sustaining the community's infrastructure remains a long-term commitment. Ensuring our assets are cared for in a responsible and forward-looking way helps protect the services that our residents rely on. We also continue to support economic opportunities, including the marketing of our industrial properties as a way to strengthen our local resilience. Across all departments, we remain committed to delivering services that residents trust and value. Affordability also continues to guide our decisions as we work to keep property taxes competitive while meeting community expectations. Internally, maintaining a healthy, capable organization is essential, assuring staff are supported and equipped to deliver on Council's direction now and as the needs of our staff continue to evolve. As we move through and work through our budget, we have very limited ways that we can access funding. So taxes remain the town's most dependable and stable funding source, forming the foundation of our operating budget for 2026. Taxes support a wide range of core municipal services, from protective services and snow clearing to community facilities, as well as general administration. Their strength lies in its predictability, which allows us to plan multi-year investments and manage inflationary pressures with greater certainty. At the same time, taxation is highly visible to residents and businesses, so any adjustments must be well justified, transparent, and closely aligned with council's expectation for service delivery. With some growth in our assessment base, there is only modest room to expand services without further increases or additional strategies to broaden revenue sources. Franchise fees are another way for us to receive funding. They continue to provide a steady, reliable revenue stream that helps reduce pressure on property taxes. These fees compensate the town for allowing utilities to operate within municipal boundaries and for our infrastructure corridors. Their year-to-year stability allows for confident forecasting. However, they do appear directly on residents' utility bills, making affordability an important consideration. As Alberta utilities costs remained a significant topic for households, we need to balance the consistency of franchise fee revenue with the impact on monthly energy bills. Because franchise agreements operate on multi-year cycles, any future changes do require proper planning and coordination. And we are in the middle of doing a franchise fee impact review, taking the direct statistics of Innisfil specifically and how changes of those franchise fee percentages can impact their monthly cost expectations. User fees is another tool. They remain an important way to ensure fairness in how services are funded. These fees can apply to things such as recreation admissions, permits, programs, certain utility services, and other areas where users directly benefit from the services provided. In 2026, user fees continue to offset operating cost and support the financial stability of high-cost facilities, such as recreation. They also create a clearer relationship between cost and usage. The challenge, however, is maintaining accessibility. Fees can only increase so much before they begin to limit participation, particularly for families or individuals who rely on lower cost programming. So balancing cost recovery with community access remains a key part of our approach. Sales of goods and services. So revenue generated from the sales of goods and services help keeps programs self-sustaining and reduces the burden on taxation. This includes facility rentals, cemetery services, bulk water, composting in our garbage recycling, and other operational activities. So these revenue streams help us maintain service levels during periods of rising costs. Because these revenues can fluctuate with demand, weather, and economic conditions, we do tend to take a conservative approach when budgeting them and adjust annually based on historical trends. Grant funding continues to play a critical role in the town's ability to deliver major capital projects. Provincial and federal programs, including the local government fiscal framework, enable us to complete larger strategic projects much sooner than would be possible through taxation alone. While grants significantly stretch our municipal dollars, they are not guaranteed in some cases. Many programs require municipal matching funds and have specific project timelines or place restrictions on how funds can be used. And for these reasons, grant support for our capital programs, but cannot be relied upon for ongoing operations. Offsite levies are another way that we can generate some revenue. They ensure that growth pays for growth. So as development continues, these levies help fund water, wastewater, stormwater, transportation infrastructure needed to support expanding areas. And this approach protects existing taxpayers from bearing the full cost of growth-related infrastructure. However, levy rates must be balanced carefully. Higher levies can influence development decisions and can affect housing affordability when you're talking from a developer point of view. And revenue depends heavily on the pace of new construction. So we do tend to put a budget number in here. 100% of our offsite levies doesn't stay within our tax budget at all. It goes into our offsite levy reserve that we then hold and use to fund the projects that are intended to fund for offsite levies. So when development slows, this can greatly increase or decrease, our ability to collect this kind of revenue. Okay. So we'll get into what this budget is presenting. So we are presenting a balanced budget with a 1.59% tax increase. So we have been able to maintain a balanced financial budget while continuing to manage all of our town service levels through 2026. The 1.59% tax increase reflects the rising operational costs we are seeing across the organization, but still keeps the overall burden as moderate as we can and stable for residents and businesses. So we did see an assessment growth by 7.104. This is both through assessment increases as well as new growth. So it is We don't know the breakdown between what is actually just an assessment increase from one year to the next versus brand new assessment base to our whole number. We will get that full breakdown at the end of February when we get our full assessment each year. So this budget does include both COLA and merit for staff. These adjustments help the town remain competitive in our Alberta's labor market and supports our ability to retain and attract qualified employees. COLA addresses the broad cost of living pressures that affect staff across the organization, and merit is tied directly to our performance management system, which evaluates goals, their job performance, and overall contribution to the organization. This ensures merit increases are based on individual outcomes rather than across-the-board adjustments. So including both COLA and merit into our 2026 budget provides consistency, stability, and fairness within the organization and supports the reliable service delivery to our staff as well. So utility rates will be rising approximately by $5.60 per month based on that 10 cubic meters of water. This increase helps to cover the rising costs of operating the town's water, wastewater, and stormwater systems. A portion of this increase comes directly from the rate changes from the commissions. So we'll get into that a little bit later as well. And we have funding for our capital projects is included in this budget. So we did do an increase for our building our debt reserve for the aquatic center funding, as well as additional reserve contributions remain a priority to administration. Maintaining healthy reserve levels is essential for long-term capital planning, as well as unexpected repairs and future growth-related needs. So we're trying to make sure that our State of Infrastructure report is funded.
So, Director Vickers, just to clarify, the budget's presenting with a 1.59% mill rate increase.
Mill rate increase.
Plus 7.104% assessment growth.
Correct.
So close to 9%.
Yes, but not everyone will see a full 7% assessment increase. It's probably closer to the 5% assessment increase across the board, with about 2.1% of new growth. Okay, so we are looking, this slide just shows our current staffing levels. So for 2026, we are looking to have 69 full-time staff members. We have removed or unfunded 2 positions for 2026, the first one being the planner intern position, and then the second one being the full-time aquatic programmer. So yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later, but they are basically this is reflecting the full-time positions that we need to maintain all of our service levels in those departments. Some of those too are based on needs, and we will be reviewing those as the year goes on. Part-time staff, we currently only have 7. Now that is quite low, but part of that is because the aquatic center is closed, and the brunt of those, our part-time staff is around 15. We will be looking to rehire those aquatic center staffs when it's open. When it comes to part-time staff, there is no fixed cap on part-time staffing, as in how many staff we have. It's based on the needs of the department and kind of an hours, right? So if we need 150 hours a week at the aquatic center, how many staff can fill those hours? We have some staff that may work 10 hours a week and some that could work more and less. So there is no cap, it's just based on operational needs and stuff. So, and again, the aquatic center is closed. We'll probably be hiring anywhere between that 12 to 15 or 16 staff members when it does come to time to reopen. And then our firefighters, we currently have 30 on the books right now. And again, very similar to our part-time staff, there really is no cap for that. It's really just truly based on the needs and the calls that kind of come in. And we only pay people based on their actual activity when they attend calls. So if they don't attend calls, then they don't get paid for that. We do have summer staff indicated in this budget, so this is the same number of staff as last year. So we do have 1 in protective services to support our increased bylaw and community patrol activity during the summer. We do have 4 summer students that work with roads, and they assist with summer road maintenance, like tar patching, potholing, things like that. We do have 8 summer staff that will be employed in the Parks Department. They provide essential support for maintaining all of our green spaces throughout the summer. Water and wastewater do share a summer student, and they just provide additional support to the utility department. Cemetery does fund another kind of parks staff member, so one's funded through that. Engineering, so we do have one engineering student. However, this student is not funded at all through our operating budget. It is funded through capital projects. So this is the second year that we've operated this way. And this year, by assigning an engineering project to the capital side of projects, we were actually able to save $44,000 in costs on our engineering costs, and the cost for the student cost us under $19,000. So we really did save some dollars by hiring that engineering summer student. And then Community Services also receives a summer student, and they provide supervision and programming support to the skate park, including at the skate park during high use months. Okay, so we'll get into kind of the sheets now. So first one is general government. This is the primary sheet where your taxes and tax-related activities come from. Again, for 2026, we are seeing property taxation remains the town's most dependable and consistent source of revenue. We are seeing projected funding of $11,192,861. Again, that is an increase to the mill rate of 1.59%, as well as that increase in assessment. This forms the backbone of our operating budget and is what allows us to deliver the day-to-day services, including protective services, roads, park, recreations, and general admin. We are looking at, we do see that special tax bylaw in there, so you will see next April 3 tax bylaws. So you'll see one of our regular tax bylaw, and you'll see 2 special tax bylaws, one for each of these properties, 61st Avenue and 37th Street. So this revenue is collected based on those special tax bylaws, which applies to only those 2 locations. Funding was used to repair the streets in those areas, and we did do a special tax bylaw to recoup a portion of that costs. And those revenues do not stay within our tax base; they go directly back into the reserve where they were funded from. We see our 2 franchise fee out of this area. So ACO franchise fee is sitting at 28%, and we'll see just under $700,000 from them, so about $698,000. That is an increase of $41,000 this year. As long as Fortis franchise fees, they're sitting at 18%, which is just under $1.9 million, which is an increase of $132,000 for the year. So we do have 3 major transfers to reserve out of this department. So the aquatic center, so we will see a slide in a little bit about that, building that debt capacity within our budget to help fund the aquatic center project. So that is sitting at $782,311. That will go into the reserves and then out to go either make any payments for the aquatic center costs or to pay down the line of credit that we have. As you see, we do have that special tax revenue of $10,725. Again, that is a direct in and then out onto the budget, so it's in and out. And then we do have $400,000 for our state of infrastructure reserve investment. So last year, prior to budget, we brought forth our state of infrastructure report and indicated that we were $1.6 million short in investment into our reserve and capital spending annually. And we wanted to build that reserve investment up to get to a level that would steady out so that we can manage our capital investments a little bit better. And so we knew we couldn't do large increases, so we asked to do kind of a gradual increase. We were granted the $200,000 last year, so we are asking for an additional $200,000, so that's why you're seeing that at $400,000 this year. And we are now at a point that each 1% in taxes is sitting at $111,000 now. Okay, so we do have kind of an assessment history slide. So 21 to 25 are actual numbers, and 26 is just an estimated number of what we've been granted so far this year. So you can see that our assessment change has reflected some consistent growth over the last 3 years. Our local market has remained healthy and supported by ongoing development and reinvestment into existing properties. And when viewed alongside provincial trends, our assessment change fits pretty comfortably in what Alberta tends to see. Looking ahead, most indicators suggest that assessment values in the province will continue to rise gradually, but they will start to steady off, and maybe we won't see some of these larger, close to double-digit increases anymore. Okay, as I indicated, here's the slide for building debt capacity. So over the last several budget cycles, we've been intentionally building debt capacity in the operating budget to prepare for the aquatic center debenture. And we decided that that was going to be a line of credit, which we have applied for, and we have received that now. Instead of absorbing the full cost all at once, we've been phasing in that required capacity gradually. And so each year we've been taking that increase and transferring it into a reserve, into the facility reserve, and then increasing that annually to kind of build up a reserve and build up that payment amount. So this approach has allowed us to strengthen the reserve over time and managing those increases in a predictable way to avoid that sudden jump in tax requirements for our residents. By 2027, these planned increases will be finished because we will have reached the level needed to make the payment for that full line of credit for the aquatic center. So if the final borrowing amount ends up being lower than expected, or the repayment terms change, or we get any anticipated grants, and the total value of that line of credit can be lower, administration will bring a conversation before council and give council the opportunity to discuss what makes the most sense going forward. So we'll talk about those options then, but options can be lowering those numbers, increasing, or not increasing it, but maintaining it, transferring it to a different project. You will see our 10-year capital project later next week, 10-year capital plan, sorry, where you do see a fairly large project in 2029 at the arena that will need its own debenture planning as well. So, but any changes to that will come before council before anything happens. Okay, so this slide shows how the town's mill rate has changed over the past decade. For a number of years, the rate stayed the same, which limited how much revenue could grow, while the cost of delivering services continued to rise. However, in the last couple of years, small and careful adjustments have been introduced to begin bringing the mill rate back in line with what's needed to support services and infrastructure investment. Okay. So in this one here, it's just kind of a nice slide to show of what your tax dollars pay for versus what you could get with it, right? So one note to this year is we increased the average home to $400,000. The slide last year showed an average of $300,000 home, so we did up that. And then we look at only just the municipal mill rate only. Now this does include the 1.59% tax increase anticipated, but obviously we would readjust that. So you see that's about $29.46, and that equates to roughly $245 a month. So for $245 a month, you get all of those municipal services. So snow removal, fire and emergency, playground maintenance, all ball diamonds and green space, policing, animal control, so on. And versus what can you spend for $245 a month? Sometimes your monthly cable and your internet, a fancy dinner for two, your heating or power bill, monthly insurance, all those things can kind of cost that same dollar amount. Okay, we'll get into council's page now. So for most of it, council's budget does remain fairly stable. One of the big notices is that the election costs have been removed out of this budget. The advertising and promotion budget did go up just slightly just to incorporate any of those costs. And a lot of the items that covers in that is if there's any community anniversaries and birthday celebrations, council sponsorships comes out of there, scholarships, the parade costs will come out of here. Some of those doctor welcome baskets, any council, if you guys are having an event and you have event costs, like you're having a mayor's meeting or you're having meetings from other councilors coming in and we need to go, even just coffee and donut cost, right? So there is a function for that. Council's professional development budget is $30,000, so this did not change for this budget. This includes any training conference opportunities for both the mayor and councilors, and this is items that we don't purposely book you for. This is a choice that you guys want to go. For example, AUMA is budgeted for both the spring and fall convention. That does not have to come out of your professional development. However, if someone wants to go to FCM, for example, that is not budgeted for. You would have to use this professional development to pay for that cost, right? One thing to note in this budget, and it's a talking point for council, is that the policy that was passed has been incorporated into this budget, so that is showing an increase for council's wages. It's about an $18,000 increase to the budget, and so that'll be a talking point on whether or not council wishes to accept the recommendation from the Council Remuneration Committee and accept that increase into the budget or deny that. So that will be a talking point or a question for you, Council. Okay, so the next slide is administration. And the administration budget covers kind of the core corporate functions that support the entire organization. This includes the majority of our technology systems, our insurance requirements, some slight contracted services and operational items used across the whole department. So the slide highlights the key cost areas within this budget, such as computer maintenance, insurance, legal, and assessor services, contracted services, equipment, membership, staff training. And these utilities reflect the ongoing needs required to keep the organization operating smoothly, as well as some salary and benefits for some of our town staff. Okay, so we do see the RCMP slide here. So Innisfil participates in the federal RCMP Municipal Police Service Agreement, which provides policing services to communities with populations between 5,000 and just under 15,000. So under this agreement, municipalities pay a share of the total policing costs through a standardized cost-sharing model. So for Innisfil, what that means is that the town is responsible for 70% of policing costs for 10 members, because that's what we're contracted for here in Innisfil. So this is 9 regular members, and we have 1 school resource officer, or an SRO, as sometimes they're referred to. So the federal government funds the remaining 30% of that. And just to note that we pay for 10 members, there are 18 members based out of Innisfil, so we do get to see that high visibility of all those other members, as well as, sorry, Gary, how many of the traffic members are there, sorry?
So the establishment is 3 traffic members. Currently, they're on 2.
Thank you. So as our share is paid through direct invoicing directly from the federal government, and that covers salaries, benefits, equipment, vehicles, training, and any other various support services required for local policing, as well as any cost for the facility there as well. So for 2026, we are seeing an increase of just over $110,000 to the RCMP contract. So this reflects updated wage settlements and benefit adjustments and operational cost changes within the national RCMP structure. So revenue from this budget, from this area comes from fines that the RCMP writes. So any fines that the RCMP write within town borders, we do get that revenue from that ticket. We also charge individuals for criminal record checks as well. And we do see a fairly large provincial policing grant for $363,000 that does help offset a portion of our RCMP costs. So this slide here just shows the RCMP contracts amounts over time. So you can see that we're at 2026. They always give us a forward-looking outlook for the next couple of years. So these values shift from year to year. So every year they send us new rates. These rates will likely be updated. But one thing we'd like to note is that in 2029, we are seeing another large increase of $157,000. So we just like to know that so that we can do proper planning going forward. Okay, so the fire department budget here supports both the administrative size of the service as well as the operational needs of the fire hall. One of the major revenue sources continues to be the $128,000 from Redrick County, which reflects our shared service model. And we also see an additional $40,000 in fire bylaw revenue, which helps offset those overall operating costs. So that $40,000 in fire revenue is a relatively new cost. It's from our new fire bylaw last year that allows us to start charging within town for certain like fires and accidents and things like that. For 2026, we do have the second year of the Fire Services Master Plan scheduled. So the year 2 cost is sitting at $25,000. So this is an important planning tool that will help us assess our current service levels and identify any future needs and guide long-term decisions around equipment, training, and staffing. Operational readiness remains a core focus of the budget. We do have some contracted services for $30,000. $10,000 of that is to support firefighter mental health, as well as $20,000 for fire inspections. We are going to be doing a review for the QMP next year, and this $20,000 gives us the budgetary needs to fulfill any changes to that budget. These items both ensure compliance and wellness of staff are supported within the department. We also have radio replacements at $25,000 to maintain dependable communication during emergency response, as we did see an increase in in firefighting supplies, and that's for things like bunker gear, hoses, and protective equipment. And we did see an increase to the fleet reserve in the amount of $25,000, so we're seeing a total of $125,000. So last year was 100, and we're increasing that this year. And overall, our budget reflects the operational safety and planning needs of the department while maintaining a longer-term sustainable approach to equipment and fleet management. And a couple slides here, we do like to kind of identify just the call volumes by month here. So this chart gives an overflow of monthly call volumes for 23, 24, and 25. It shows that while individual months fluctuate from year to year, the overall activity level remains fairly consistent. The department continues to respond to a steady workload throughout the year, with seasonal peaks in some months, depending on incident type and weather conditions, specifically in winter months around accidents. And this helps provide context for staffing, training, and equipment. So you see in 2023, total calls were 449, and then 24, they were 448. Already to the end of October, we were at 405, which we'll probably see a good 60 or 70 calls more, so we will far surpass our numbers from last year. And then the next slide is really just, it's the same information, it's just broken out by file type. And we only do the 24 and 25 calls here. And it just shows how our calls compare between the 2 years. And the overall patterns remain very similar year to year, with EMS, false alarms, and MVA calls continuing to make up the largest portions of the activity. And then there's some natural variations across other categories, fewer structure fires, grass calls in 25, and small differences in areas like the gas leaks. Just the comparison helps illustrate how the mix of calls shifts each year and supports planning and training for our firefighting staff.
Director Vickers, this is through to Director Leith. The EMS calls, so is that the calls that Innisfail looks after because there's no ambulance within a certain time frame, or?
Your Worship, yeah. So currently our response model is set if an ambulance is more than 15 minutes out for Delta Echo calls or confirmed cardiac arrest. That's our current model, both within our community as also Red Deer County. We continually review that response model. I know some of council, when Alberta Health Services came to make the presentation, they expect a growth within our community of around that 11% based upon our demographics year on year, and our medical first response is probably reflective of that currently.
Okay, we'll move on to emergency management. This department is a very small department. It really just kind of covers our emergency management work. So inside this, we do have a kind of a $5,000 operating project. This is specifically for an emergency coordination activity annually. So every year we do have to participate in either some kind of tabletop or actual activity to help prepare and manage us for any kind of emergencies. It covers ongoing planning, training, and response coordination. The total budget for the 2026 is low at $22,500, which supports the core requirements needed to maintain readiness and meet provincial expectations for municipal emergency management. Okay, so the next slide here is the helipad budget. So the helipad budget covers the work required to keep the site operational and compliant. It includes daily inspections, staff training, routine maintenance, and winter snow removal. So landing activity has kind of varied each year. In 2021, we did have one landing, kind of peaked in 23 at 5. 4 was what we had in 24, and so far to date, only 1 in 2025 this year. So the 2026 budget just reflects the ongoing costs needed to maintain the helipad in a safe and ready condition for emergency use.
Mayor Barclay, can I ask a question? Through to Director, is it only STARS that ever lands on that, or do we have other emergency helicopters that land there?
Only STARS, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have the bylaw budget. So this includes staffing, equipment, and operational supports needed for enforcement, education, and community response. So we do have a main revenue source of fines. It is budgeted at $90,000 each year. So the budget includes salary and part-time wages for a summer bylaw employee, along with overtime for after-hours enforcement. Training and conferences supported to our peace officer certification. The department also has telecommunication costs for dispatch services, and this comes from Lacombe Police Services. This is included for all 3 peace officers, as well as our summer bylaw student was also eligible or able to be covered by this service as well. So it really just better protects our peace officers out in the community. So legal services for all of our bylaw prosecution is also funded out of this department, along with all of our vehicle and equipment maintenance, safety supplies. We do have a planned $20,000 transfer to our fleet reserve, which I do believe so in 2027, we will be looking to increase that as well, just to manage now that we have 3 peace officers. We're increasing the vehicle allotment for that department, and we need to make sure we're properly covering for the replacement of those vehicles. So along, just like fire, we do like to show the year-to-date complaint volumes, or the statistics anyway. So this is the complaint type and volume. So in 2023, our Protective Services Department dealt with 735 different complaints. In 2024, they were at 754, and so far to date, they're hitting 718. So the distribution of complaints shows fairly consistent across the 3 years. Parking, sidewalks, snow, and animals tend to make up the largest volumes. We can see some normal variations from year to year depending on weather, seasonal conditions, and community activity levels. So just kind of tries to show us what kind of work our peace officers kind of get up to. And then the next one, we'd like to talk about kind of ticket and revenue. So throughout 2025, they have written 25 municipal tickets and 296 provincial tickets for a total revenue written for $123,232. So, and this kind of shows just the month-to-month variation in ticket revenue. The chart combines both municipal and provincial tickets, with provincial fines making up the majority of the total revenue each month. The dollar amounts do fluctuate throughout the year, and that's based on enforcement activity, weather, traffic patterns, and things like that. Overall, the chart just helps illustrates how our revenue is distributed throughout the year.
Director Vickers, we get half the provincial, correct?
Yeah, so we'll go to the next
Okay,
slide.
sorry. Okay.
So while I said, yes, we get $123,000 in revenue, we do have to look at a couple of different things. So when provincial tickets are written, there is no guarantee on when these tickets can be paid. They can be unpaid and eventually end up on someone's license. And the only time that we may even get paid back could be 5 years later when they're forced to renew their license. Another big common thing that we tend to see is as people are finding alternate ways to pay for their ticket, such as spending time in jail. Sometimes that you can kind of write off some of those costs by doing that. So out of the 123, we haven't received the money. Tickets been paid in the amount of $64,000. With that, we need to take off the victim services amount, and that's sitting at $12,938. With the bylaw revenue of sitting at $1,800, we only see a total peace officer revenue this year so far to date of $53,612. So now all those tickets remain sitting in a fund that is sitting unpaid, which is a very high dollar value. So we just have to wait for those to eventually get paid in and come in, right? So Director Leith was telling us today that the victim services revenue amount likely will go up if they move to kind of that e-reader system. Right now it's at the 26%. It will be going up to about 40% if they move into that different type of ticketing. Okay, so health and safety supports training for our staff across the organization. We do see a training cost of $17,000 for 2026. So this includes all required certifications such as the hearing test, confined space, fall protection, and so on. We also maintain a work alone app. So what happens when we have certain staff that are working, like say on call at 2 or 3 in the morning and they're out working alone, we have an app that kind of monitors them when they're out alone, just so that they can be better protected. Excuse me, so that comes out of this budget as well. And overall, the program continues to provide the essential training and safety equipment needed to support staff, like working out in the field. So we just did this. I meant to do another one, I just didn't have time to put a nice one for the fire department, but then put this one in here to say that, well, you know, they need some heroes too, so. And next time, I think next year, we're gonna have it that they're pulling, like plowing, and then the fire truck's falling behind them or something, right? So this is just a nice little slide that we like to show every year, just to kind of show really what the operation departments has to manage every year. So there's 90 kilometers of roads. They have about 64 kilometers of both water and sewer lines, and 36 kilometers of storm lines, 20 kilometers of trails with 58 kilometers of sidewalks, and then 200 acres of green space that they have to manage. So they get a lot done. So this slide kind of just shows what the cost, how much it costs us to do our snow removal. So snow removal hours can change significantly from year to year, and it is all very driven entirely by weather patterns. Some winters require sustained operations over several storms, where other have very few events. So we have 22 to 25. Now 25 obviously is only year to date, and we really haven't had we've had no winter hours basically in the fall yet. We're only just kind of starting to see some now. So you can see the hours and costs rise and fall based on the number of snow events and the length of the times that the crews are out. And you just see how winter conditions drive our staffing time. You can see it's over $200,000 each year just in man hours to push snow off the road. Around just over 6,000 hours a year kind of thing. Okay, we'll get into roads, the roads department. So at the top of the thing, we do have our operating project. So that did increase slightly this year by $5,000. But we do have sidewalk repairs at $100,000. And then we do have a valve and manhole repair for $20,000 that is new. Within infrastructure maintenance, when you look into the budget, you will see a large decrease in Department 5251, which is infrastructure repairs. It went down from 163 down to 105, so that is a loss of, or a decrease of 58,500. However, we really are just pulling out any of the rail crossing maintenance costs and place them into a different repairs and maintenance line. So we did see a decrease of 10,000 overall for those two budgets, but 58,000 was moved out of one and 48,000 was put into a different line. So I just wanted to kind of note that. We do have contracted services are going up from 65 to 80. That is an increase of $15,000. So this covers things like the center lines on Main Street. We have a contractor come in and do that. Any sidewalk and rink snow removal, if it gets too much, we can hire a contractor for that. Dust control, any clean harbors contracts, some fleet diagnostics, as well as any engineering studies or reports can come out of this line as well. Electricity. The brunt of the electricity out of this department is the streetlights across the entire community. So this saw a fairly large increase from $530,000 last year to $570,000 this year. And this is primarily made up with those distribution and transmission charges, and that's in line with our usage. Fuel did decrease. We lowered that by $35,000 this year, and that was just based on the last couple of year actuals, kind of truing that up. And most other lines, as freight and telecommunications, safety supplies, equipment repairs, has all remained stable from last year. We also maintained the transfer to fleet reserve, so that's staying maintaining at $290,000 as well.
Director Vickers, can I ask a question? Yes. Going back to the light poles, I'm not remembering, did we actually ever get a number from Fortis on the total amount of our assets relative to that infrastructure? Do you remember if we had that conversation with Fortis to say?
How many light poles?
Yeah.
Are you referencing the value, like if in terms of
value
purchasing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did go through that.
Did we get a number
process,
from them?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Director Vickers, I just have a question for Director Kennedy. Had some feedback about some manhole covers that are sitting maybe well above, they're not flush with street level. Curious why that happens and what do you do to repair that?
So I guess for question in regards to why it happens, really it comes down to movement. Every year freeze thaw, creates movement within the soil. And if it's a clay-based, that eventually does move them and adjust them. So it really depends on, the development area. Some will move more than others. That's what this valve and manhole repair program is. So since I've been here, we haven't focused enough on those. We're finding that those are becoming significant throughout town. So that's why we've created this program to now get caught up and get ahead of that. Yep.
So you can repair without digging the street up too much. And
Correct. It's focused, just doing a patch around the valve, a patch around the manhole, without doing the whole street.
Okay, we'll move on to parks. And so for parks, the 2026 budget is focusing on just maintaining the core service levels across our green spaces, playgrounds, and any public areas. So we have $15,000 allocated towards an operating project. So this did decrease by $10,000 for the 2026 year. And this really is just our annual tree replacement work. Next year, we will see it go back up to the standard $25,000 again. We do cover contracted services, so this department does pay for all the porta potty rentals that are across all of the various green spaces. When you go to kind of a ball diamond or a field and there's a porta potty there, it kind of comes out of this department. And as well as tree trimming services will come out of this department as well. So we do have our mower lease program, so that will continue this year. That budget is sitting at $56,000, and this ensures that we have reliable equipment during peak growth periods and avoid any capital purchases. However, with that said, we are going to be doing a review of our lease program this year and really do that financial breakdown to see if we should be purchasing mowers versus leasing mowers and see how that works out. So we do have some small things, purchase of new equipment. That covers things like small tools, like if you need it, like a little trimmer or saws or any other day-to-day things. And they do have, like we said before, they have 8 summer staff. They really do have 9. Parks has 9. 8 get funded here and 1 does get funded out of cemetery. So on the reserve side, last year the reserve was only $350,000, so we are looking to do an increase of $50,000 to the fleet reserve just to help balance that fleet reserve and make sure that all of our fleet and equipment are funded properly. Here's just a nice little slide that we like to show. We showed it last year on what was removed and added. So we did remove 45 trees this year. However, we did plant 108 new trees, more than doubling those replacements compared to what we removed this year. And we want to continue improving overall canopy coverage and keeping our parks and pathways safe and well maintained.
Director Vickers, was that increase this year because of the FCM grant that we received? Or were we budgeted to increase by that much anyways?
Sorry, just to clarify your question.
We received a grant from FCM relative to trees. Is that 108 new trees, is that part of that program?
Correct.
Thank you.
So the transportation department really is our PACE bus. So our transportation budget reflects the continued operation of the PACE bus service, which remains an important mobility option for residents who rely on accessibility, community transportation. So the big expense is our annual contract to the PACE bus, and that is $165,000 for our base contract. And we do identify an additional $24,000, for chartered services. So chartered services are when you can book and you want to go to Red Deer, and there's a different cost for that. On the revenue side, we do receive $18,000 in user fees, so those are the actual tickets that people buy. And we do attribute $106,000 from our LGFF operating to this department. So these revenues definitely help offset the overall program costs, but don't fully recover the costs of the program. Fuel costs are budgeted at about $15,000, which reflects current market conditions and expected usage levels. We're still only a few years in, but that's kind of the trend that it's been showing is around those dollar amounts. And we do include a $10,000 transfer to their fleet reserve just to support future payments of vehicles. We do have 2 vehicles that we do have to support long-term capital planning for. And then the next slide is just some high-level information. Our public transportation systems continues to be a well-used community service. It does operate 43 hours a week. The hours have remained consistent year-round, with weekday service from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and on the weekends, it's 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. This schedule is designed around the highest demand periods, things like that. For the 2025 year-to-date, ridership remains strong, so we're seeing 5,109 passenger trips on 2,864 individual rides. So that means it works out to an average of 140 passenger trips on 64 unique rides. So overall, the Pace Bus continues to provide reliable mobility support for seniors and residents with accessibility needs and for those without alternative transportation options. Okay, we'll move into the storm sewer. So the storm sewer program is one of the town's dedicated utility services. So what that means is that it is not supported by property taxes. It is fully funded by its own internal rates and fees. The program covers the core work needed to keep the storm systems functioning properly throughout the year. That includes any digs and repairs when lines fail, ongoing flushing to maintain flow capacity, and camera inspections to identify any blockages or structural issues before they become major problems. We do continue contributing to the utility capital reserve. So this year we're able to transfer $51,386 to support future infrastructure renewal and storm system upgrades. So in this department, we have every other year we have an operating project of catch basin repairs. So we have one in 2025, and it's a $40,000 project. In 26 we will not have that, and then we'll see that again come back in 2027. Okay, so water, the water utility, just very similar to storm. It remains a fully self-funded service with all costs recovered through user fees and zero reliance on municipal taxation. And the most significant cost for the 2026 is the increase for the Mountain View Regional Water Commission. So it was written in here that it was scheduled to approve its budget the morning of the 21st, which it did happen today. We had been advised previously that they would be talking between a 10 and 15% increase and err on the side of caution and go with 15%. We found out today that they did actually pass their 15% increase. And what that means for Innisfil, it means a 33-cent increase to our rate. So we'll maintain that there. So yeah, so we are seeing our consumption sitting at $2,776,000. So all of our numbers are based on the 5-year average of what our consumption, and we included a 33-cent increase. So what that means is that we took no increase for our own town administration, and we were only putting in the 33-cent increase for them this year. We do see some, so like I said, we do see some transfer to reserves. So this utility department transfers $50,000 to the utility fleet reserve. So utility fleet is separated from our other fleet because again, this is not supposed to be tax funded dollars. So any purchases for the utility department should come directly from utility funded costs. And then because it is a self-funded and we have to net this down to zero, so none of these dollars stay within our normal tax dollars. So we transfer the balance to reserves, which is sitting at $148,000 this year. Okay. So one of the things is fairly new in 2024 is our water rebate program. So I did want to just kind of show some stats of where we're sitting at this year. We're kind of sitting at a very similar dollar amount at $3,500 for 24 and $3,600 for 2025. We do anticipate, we do give this a $25,000 budget within this department. So what that shows us is that we need to get out there and do a better job of communicating this out there and letting other people know that this program's available. So here's just our water rate forecast. Our water rates are reviewed annually, and most of our adjustments depend almost entirely on the increase we receive from the Regional Water Commission. The numbers here are based on our most current information, and now that we know that it's 33 cents, we can kind of confirm that that's it. As annual pressures continue from the Commission and internally, it becomes more important that our rate structure supports a stronger and more consistent transfer to the utility capital reserve. based on a standard 15-cent increase from 27 to 2030, we are just seeing that gradual decline in those transfer to reserve numbers. So we will likely be doing a review to try and bring it up and look more on the historical increase from year to year to kind of show what that looks like.
Mayor, just have a question. 33 cents increase. On average, what is the consumption in a family of four home? What would that be an increase in cost to a family a year?
So we do have a sheet later that we talk about the consumer changes for each resident. So we base it on a 10 cubic meter, which is not necessarily a family of four. That's probably a family of three.
Okay.
And so that's $5.60.
A month or annually?
That's a month, just for the utilities.
Just for the water?
No, that's for both the water and sewer. So if it was just water, it would be $3.30 a month.
Okay, thank you.
Director Vickers, have we had, or maybe I'll ask our Water Commission people, is there any direction going forward on, like I said, is there a 5-year budget that the Water Commission has that's showing what increases might be?
We did talk about that this morning, Mayor Barclay, at the budget, at our monthly board meeting. The budget that was presented was recommended from the last commission board because of the election timing. But the conversation was that due to end of life on a lot of our infrastructure, that we would be looking at probably 15% a year for the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. Okay, Mayor Barclay, so based on that kind of recommendation, we'll probably be updating these future numbers and providing you updated sheets for your binders for next week, just to kind of go on that, right? So, okay.
Yeah, I think, well, I guess at some point in time, we'll have the CEO from the Water Commission in, but I'd also, kind of like to know what they can fund through grants and that kind of thing. And, there's also wastewater forum happening through a provincial grant, because we know some of our communities the rates are rising quickly, and it makes it difficult to be competitive.
Yeah. There's been some movement provincially, and as a new person, relatively new on this commission, there has been a provincial grants program that has been available in the past, not to water commissions, but to municipalities. And they've had some movement on getting some of those projects in other municipalities funded through that grant program, but via the water commission. So I think that absolutely it's an important conversation for us to have as we move forward. But from that, they're essentially in the same boat from an asset management perspective as we are with our infrastructure. And so 50-year-old pipes that are needing to be replaced. So it would be good to have that conversation.
Okay, we'll move on to wastewater. So just like water, wastewater is built on a 5-year consumption average. So we did receive a 3-cent increase from the SRD Commission. And then we added a 20-cent operational increase for us to have a 23-cent increase for wastewater. So these changes shape the revenue forecast and reflect the pressures we expect for the upcoming year. On the expense side, just like water, the SRD Commission does remain our largest cost driver. And they did, like I said, they have this 3-cent increase being carried forward. So we are seeing just under a $2.6 million expense from the SRD for the year. And we should be seeing right under $3 million for consumption at like $2,994,000. So our operating programs does support manflow, infill, and filtration work. So we also see engineering services. We do see half of our seasonal staffing in there. We have regulatory monitoring in response to system issues when they arise. So we do see some transfers to the utility capital as well as the utility fleet reserve. So the wastewater does fund $75,000 into the utility fleet reserve. So the utility fleet receives $125,000 into it annually to help fund utility equipment. And this is going, $58,000 is going into the utility capital replacement reserve. We thought we'd like to show you just some Sandy dump statistics. So our Sandy dump was built a few years ago, but in 2022, a separate water fill station was was added along with our e-reader payment system. So once that kind of came on, we went from kind of tokens to this e-reader system that allowed people to use their debit card or credit card. So it really just made the payment processing more straightforward and much more simpler for the public to kind of use. And our activities kind of remained stable, and our revenues reflect kind of a steady level of use. Along with water, we do have our wastewater rate forecast as well. You can see in 2026, we do have our 23-cent increase, and then going forward from year after year, we do see a 20-cent increase as well. As you can see, that transfer to reserve is slowly increasing at this rate, which is nice. That's what we want to see. And just like water rates, our wastewater rates are reviewed each year because they depend on increases we receive from the SRD Commission, as well as any operational pressures. So without knowing what they're going to be increasing year over year, it's kind of hard to kind of set some standard rates in there. Okay, so the solid waste budget continues to be supported by the new Extended Producer Responsibility Program, which is providing $204,000 in annual revenue for 2026. This funding is going to cover a significant portion of the recycling program and actually cover and repay a large portion of the garbage carts that we had previously purchased. Our contracted services for solid waste remains our largest operating cost at $703,000. So this currently does include the collection of garbage organics as well as any yard waste and recycling. These contracts are pretty stable over the year with just a minor cost increase from year to year. So in 2026, we continue to transfer the funds back to our general cap reserve to repay the remaining balance on the prior purchase of garbage, recycling, and organics carts. Once those carts are fully paid off, any of that excess revenue from this department will flow back into that utility reserve to support the future long-term process for our utility department. So the solid waste budget also supports ongoing operations at the transfer station. So this does include staffing, supplies, cleaning out the branch pit and other minor operating costs. And again, solid waste is another one of those departments that is self-funded and it is not covered by any taxation dollars. Okay, so we did like to just kind of really bring a full detail of these garbage carts. So we bought the garbage and organic bins in 2019, and then we bought the recycle bins in 2022 for a total value purchased for just over $626,000. You can see that what we've paid back so far is $125,000. So we still see a balance of $466,000 owed back to the general cap reserve for these garbage carts. And you can see that we should have that paid back by middle of 2027.
Mayor Barkley, to the director, just wondering, are we paying interest on that, or is it just
No, Mayor Barkley through to Councilor Russell. So this is just kind of an internal, we're not paying interest to ourselves, no.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is kind of just an overall proposal for our utility rates. So we are looking to go water up to $3.59, which is an increase of 33 cents, and the sewer going up to $4.54, which is an increase of 23 cents per cubic meter. But all of our flat charges would remain the same. So this is just our transfer to reserve kind of outlook from 2026 to 2030, specifically to that utility reserve. As you note, the transfer to garbage reserve is 0 in 2026 and only a small portion in 2027, because that is when we should have those garbage carts paid back. Yeah, and the total transfer does fluctuate annually because it is driven by the individual utility rates, any system demands, and the specific needs for each department. Again, partially dependent on what those commissions and how those rates come into us as well. These amounts are forecasted based on the information we have today, and they will continue to change each year as rates are updated and as capital requirements evolved. And looking ahead, extended producer responsibility may also affect the garbage utility. Once the program is fully implemented, the province could shift on how they want that to be operated. And once we have any kind of further steps, we will bring that to council for a conversation. Okay. So this slide is also in your binder as well, but we do like to show a utility bill comparison across kind of that central Alberta corridor. And typically, these are the ones that we always choose. Bowden, Penhold, Innisfil, Olds, Sylvan Lake, Black Falls, and Lacombe. And you can kind of see there that Bowden is the smallest at $119.50 a month, then Penhold at $128.05, Innisfil at $131.30, so on and so forth. Just to note, Penhold, Innisfil, Olds, and Black Falls have all identified that these are their 2026 numbers. Penhold, Sylvan Lake, and Lacombe, these are still their 2025 numbers. And just a few notes, Bowden has already identified that they will be increasing their rates directly what the commission has given them, so they didn't know at the time, so they've kind of pre-identified that. Penhold did let us know that they do have different flat rates for different types, so institutional, commercial, or multifamily. So this is just for a standard typical residential home. And then Black Falls is kind of new this year that they now only charge 80% for water usage, so for their sewer. So we pay 100 for 100, most other do, but Black Falls went from 100 for water to 80 for sewer. So yeah, so Innisfil is sitting right where we tend to sit. We always tend to sit kind of in that third, just after Bowden and Penhold, and before kind of everyone else on the kind of corridor.
Director, can you explain the one-to-one?
So when we don't have the ability to monitor how much sewer goes out of each home. So what we do now is for every cubic meter that comes in from water, we make the assumption that it must also go out by the sewer. So for every cubic meter of water comes in, we charge you for the sewer cost at a one-for-one basis.
So, Mayor Berkeley, that would mean that watering your lawn, even though it's not going through the sewer, you're still paying that cubic rate for that, correct?
That's correct, yes. There are a handful of irrigation meters or things that are not connected to any sewer system and they don't pay sewer charges. So there is a handful of those out there. If you are, there is an avenue for you to do that. You would have to come in and talk to the engineering department and have kind of go through and see how that can work out. But yes, we do charge for a one-for-one. We don't have a way to monitor what water goes down the sewer. So for this way, that's how we do it. So Family and Community Support Services, or FCSS as it's kind of commonly called, is a preventative social services program delivered in partnership between the province of Alberta and the municipality. The town receives a provincial grant each year, and we contribute a required municipal portion to match the funding model. So for 2026, we are going to be receiving $216,934 in grant funds from the government, and the town of Innisfil has to contribute $54,234. So FCSS is not designed to provide crisis intervention. Instead, its core purpose is to strengthen individuals, families, and the community through early intervention and prevention-focused programming. This can include programs aiming at reducing social isolation, supporting youth and seniors, building community resilience, and increasing access to local resources and supports. So as part of the FCSS mandate, the town provides internal programming budgeted at $37,600, and this covers things like workshops, community initiatives, and some volunteer programs. And then we also provide substantial grants to local organizations. So in 2026, $105,000 is going to be allocated to community groups who deliver preventative-based services such as youth supports, family programs, mentorships, mental wellness initiatives, and community building activities. So these partnerships allow the town's funding to reach a wider range of residents and support programs that are deeply rooted in the community. So overall, the FCSS department plays a key role in the town's social well-being framework. It ensures that preventative supports remain available, that vulnerable residents have access to early resources, and that community-based organizations are able to continue offering programs that strengthen the social fabric of Innisfil. We'll move on to the cemetery. So the cemetery budget is an important part of our overall operations. Revenue is generated primarily through lot sales as well as services that the cemetery provides, such as open and closes. We do receive a small annual contribution from Ritter County in the amount of $5,000 as part of their annual grant that they do give us. And these revenues help offset ongoing operational costs, which include maintenance of the ground, servicing of plots, and general care of the of the site. So we do have a transfer so there is a revenue called perpetual care. And then there's a transfer to reserve called perpetual care. And so when you buy a plot, you have to kind of pay a perpetual care amount, which is kind of the future repairs of your plot, right? So let's say in 25 years, your plot is kind of dipping down and we need to send people and go push it back up and fill it back up. You pay a little bit of portion of future repairs and maintenance as perpetual care. So then that perpetual money goes exactly into reserves, right? So very similar to some other things where how much money we get in will go directly into that reserve. So it is earmarked at 10,000, but if we bring in 15,000 in perpetual care money, 15,000 will go into that reserve. So it's kind of an in and an out on that line. We do have one operating project on the books for 2026, and that is new concrete runners. So that should cost us about $25,000. This is one of those things very similar to the catch basins in the storm sewer. It's every other year. So last year, in 2025, we didn't do a project, but in 26 we'll do a project for 25,000. None in 27, and then we'll bring it back in 28, kind of thing. So we do have some stats here for our columbarium. So we have 45 available plots in the columbarium. We have 69 in full burial, 70 in cremation. And then we have, in the field of honor, we have 95 cremation plots and 16 full burial plots in the field of honor. So we do need to get some more, some open. When it comes to opening and doing the runners, we don't just create a block and open it up. We do maintain that the majority of our current blocks get filled up to a certain percentage before we then tend to open up a new block. So just note on that. Okay, so the planning department oversees all permitting and land use processes for the town. Revenues in this area come from several sources, more specifically plumbing, electrical and gas permits, development permits, building permits, as well as compliance certificates. The department also manages the transfer to the offsite levy reserve. So this is very much similar to the perpetual care reserve we were just speaking about. When it comes to new development, right, as we said before, development needs to pay for development. So we will generally attribute offsite levy cost to new development. And when we receive that money in, that money directly comes in and goes directly into reserve. So it does not hit our tax base. We don't keep any of that money. It's an in and an out, just like that. So this is the department where we did kind of remove part of that planner position. So that's low, but what that does mean is that the planning services through PCPS did have to increase a little bit to kind of offset the lack of that position. Staff is currently working on an LUB review and will be reviewing the downtown ARP in 2026. The Woodlands Area Structure Plan is another key item for the year. The work is funded through reserves with $70,000 allocated to complete the project. And this project will only proceed if a private developer for the Hertford Meadows or Woodlands Estates areas advance. So that's why we're also funding it from reserves, so that we're not budgeting for it and increasing the budget by $70,000 and then it not happen. So this way we can still manage the funding of that. The department also administers grants that support redevelopment and reinvestment within the community. The facade improvement program provides $15,000, which is an increase of $5,000 from last year, to assist property owners with exterior upgrades, while the infill incentive program has increased by $20,000 to $80,000 to further encourage redevelopment on vacant lots or underused residential lots in an already developed area, right? And overall, the planning budget reflects both the operational needs of managing development activity with the strategic investment that requires to guide long-term growth.
Question, Mayor Barkley. Just the infill program. So we've increased it by 30%. So it's been oversubscribed in the past couple of years?
It is oversubscribed this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so I believe we started it in 2021, just after COVID, and the first couple of years we had very little uptake, but the last 2024, 25, we've seen substantial infill activity and utilization of those funds.
And how much can they apply for?
So if they're less than 4 units, they can get $15,000 on their project. If they're over 4 units, they can get up to 30. And eligible costs include permit costs to the town, the costs of running new service connections, demolition costs, hazardous material abatement, that sort of thing. Costs that are more typically associated with an infill as opposed to just buying a new lot in a new subdivision.
So we like to show this slide. It just shows the historical number of building and development permits issued over the past several years. Building permit activity has generally trended upward with notable increases in 23 and 24. Development permit fluctuates year to year depending on subdivision activity, business changes, and homeowner spending. Overall, remaining consistent with community growth patterns. And the 24 or 2025 is just year to date numbers there. Okay. So the Land Development Department operates in the same way that our utility. Sorry.
Before we leave
Yep.
planning, I noticed in our binder, there is a loan repayment schedule that was included in there. Just for my understanding, what was the $5.5 million loan for?
Yeah, so I do apologize. That was put under the wrong tab. It really should be under the next tab for land because it is for
Okay.
the Southwest Industrial loan repayment.
Okay,
So
thank you.
okay. Okay, so the land development does operate in its utility department where it does not receive any tax-funded dollars to operate. It's a fully self-funded model. All revenues generated through land leases and the sale of industrial and residential lots are used to support the department's operations, with the balance going into the land development reserve. So because it does not rely on taxation, the department's financial position really depends on its ability to generate revenue and sell lots throughout the year. So for 2026, higher revenues are expected due to increased lot sales in two key areas. So marketing of the Southwest Industrial, which we've added in as a operating project in here for $20,000, is anticipated to result in increased activity. And then the new Southwest Residential subdivision, it's also coming on the market here now with quite a few, with sales from the lot draw earlier this year, and sales continue to happen now. These combined revenues support the department's operating expenses and fully fund the annual mortgage payment tied to the Southwest Industrial infrastructure. So Napoleon South, just a note, is now 72% conditionally sold, with all lots closing in either 2026 or 2027. So that's working pretty well. So a major financial consideration for this department is the risk is tied to the sale of those lots. Unlike taxation, which provides consistent and predictable annual funding, the land sales can fluctuate with market conditions and timing. So when sales meet projections, the department can comfortably support the mortgage and make transfers to reserves for future development. But when sales slow, revenue becomes tighter and reserve contributions may be reduced. So we do manage and monitor this throughout the year just to make sure that everything's still stable. So like I said, we did kind of add in a $20,000 cost for marketing of those industrial lots, and that has been included to support, to maintain visibility and support our competitiveness in the regional market and to really get that out there and try to kind of get those moving.
Do you want to talk about the Southwest Industrial here or inland or right now?
Yeah, right now.
Because right now, she says. Sound like a bit of a broken record on this, but I'm really curious, Director Vickers, maybe some potential land sale for 2026 and paying out that mortgage with our reserves and then putting the land sales back in the reserve and getting rid of the interest cost, because we did kind of lock in at a fairly high rate. It was just timing, that's all it was. So I'm curious, I know kind of inquired before about payout penalty, and I know that's a bit of a chore because it's not just a matter of you doing that. You need to go to government to get that number. But I would personally kind of like to see what that number looks like over the next few days, if that's possible. Or
So we did talk about that this morning and
Okay.
just kind of talk about what that would look like to pay that out of our reserve. So right now, the only thing is that we are doing this development right now, and that's coming out of reserves first. We're prepaying for that and having to repay it from land sales. So we would have to wait until the majority of these land sales do close and we receive that money, because we're probably going to be taking most of the land reserve from doing the development right now. Or do you mean other reserves, to pull from other reserves? You mean any reserves?
any reserves. Well, I just think was it at 5.5%, and it would be nice to not have that payment, right? And put the money back into reserves as land is sold, and, which is more risky and which is more beneficial.
So are you looking for a formal payout quote from the government? Okay, I don't know if that will be ready in a few days. I will, go ahead, Todd.
I would add, also, we have to look at the reserves too. Council has not seen that, the dedication to reserves. So yeah, we need to get to that piece too.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be difficult to put this together within this budget deliberation, unless you really want it. Yeah, certainly we need to, we'll take that back administratively for consideration well, not consideration, but to review and see what we can do to bring it back to council.
Yeah, even portional payout or something, start paying down that debt a little bit quicker if possible, and maybe it's not, and I know, we want to be careful what we dip into as far as reserves go, but at the same token, I would like to see what it looks like at some point in time.
Definitely council and mayor, and my only thought is council will need to express the appetite of what level of reserve you're comfortable with. So there's a conversation to be had by council, and if you want it into next week, then we'll certainly work to derive at that. However, it's very difficult when you have not got to that piece of the conversation yet.
One thing to note is that because this is not a tax-supported department, it wouldn't impact a lot of, any of the tax discussion, and we would just be moving things around internally in this department, whether we're paying a mortgage or that money's just gonna go into reserve, kind of 50-50, so.
Mayor Berkeley, but I think if I read that chart right, though, it could save $1.5 million in interest costs. Whether it's in a reserve or not, it is still $1.5 million, right?
Mayor Berkeley, just to supplement, so council will see when they get to the reserves, policy and the reserves, there's restricted and non-restricted reserves. So restricted reserves are already dedicated to something. So that's what I mean. There's a little bit more to it than just we have $15 million worth of reserve. Let's pull 5 out. So again, there's some educational component to this conversation that we'd like to have that time with you, council, before we move into those types of considerations.
Okay, let's move. Okay, we'll move on to the campground department. So the Anthony Hendy Campground is located on the northwest corner of the town and is operated by the Lions Club. We do have an agreement with them. The campground provides a mix of service trailer sites, unserviced tenting sites. They do have washroom facilities and amenities such as the playground. They have a picnic, kind of lunch shelter, day use space. Revenues from this site, from site rentals, offset most of the operating costs. And expenses cover items such as maintenance, utilities, support for the services provided on site. And then we do have a transfer to reserves for $8,500. And that just goes towards if we have to replace the cook shack in there or the bathroom facilities, things like that. So economic development. So the economic development budget supports the town's work to promote investment, strengthen the local business environment, and advance strategic projects that helps position Innisfil for long-term growth. Most of the budget is tied to salaries and employer benefits, which reflect the ongoing work involved in business outreach, marketing research, regional partnership engagement, and strategic planning. The budget includes modest allocations for staff development, travel, and registration fees to ensure participation in key economic development training, conferences, and regional events. And we also have funding provided for advertising, marketing materials, subscriptions, and so on. Membership fees remain a significant part of the budget, with a $25,000 budget allocated to regional organizations, CAPE for $10,000, CATA for $5,000, and CAF for $10,000. These partnerships give the town access to shared regional marketing initiatives, economic data, and business support networks. So we do have an operating project for $80,000, and this is to update the Power of Place strategy. This work totals $80,000, which includes a $50,000 carryover from this year, and that That number will come to you when we do the year-end numbers. I'll be asking to put that money to reserve to bring that back out for this project in this year. Sorry.
Sorry, Director Vickers, maybe through to Director Jenkins. I know within the Community Economic Development Advisory Group, there was discussion about a website at one point in time. Like, would that be someplace else, or?
So the website is currently under development and is covered under 2025.
Okay.
Budget dollars, yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
That should be Q1 2026, that will be live for sure.
So the Power of Place update will require the support of external consultant and will include certain amount of public engagement. Contracted services can also include to provide support for project delivery, things like that. So we did have a line on there for additional grants to others to support economic development. We have moved that to the wish list for council consideration. And overall, this budget provides the resources needed to maintain core economic development services while advancing key strategic initiatives for the coming year. And the next slide, we do kind of have some key highlights of what's going to happen kind of next year. The focus is on updating our long-term strategy, enhancing regional collaboration, as well as launching the new CED website. Work also continues on promoting our community and property inventory, advancing industrial land sales in the Southwest area, and supporting local business growth through the Rural Entrepreneur and Renewal Program. So communication budgets covers the staffing and resources needed to support all town departments with day-to-day messaging, public engagement, digital contact, as well as event promotion. The majority of the budget is tied to salaries and employer benefits, which reflects the specialized work involved in writing, design, photography, video, website management, and coordinating town-wide communications. The department includes modest allocations for staff training, travel, and professional development so staff can maintain certifications and stay current with evolving communication practices. The budget also includes funding for advertising and promotions, which supports print and digital campaigns, community notices, council updates, public engagement activities, and all required town-wide communication materials. So special events is a significant portion of this budget, sitting at $55,000, and it's allocated those dollars to support community events. And this is a list of events that we've had in the past. It's not totally exhaustive, but the parade, we do 2 registration nights per week. We have Youth and Seniors Week, registration night twice per year, not twice per week. No. Youth and Seniors Week, Hillside Vibes. We typically do a skate park community event. We'll have the Christmas tree lighting as what we're going to have later today. Canada Day, the fireworks was moved to this budget from last year and it remains here now. The Community Awards, Family Day and Winterfest, as well as any other kind of little event that we kind of decide to do. Communications provides the marketing, promotion, creative branding, and logistical measuring that helps these events succeed. And overall, this budget funds the full suite of communication services required to ensure residents receive timely, accurate, and accessible information across all platforms throughout the year. Okay, the Community Services Department continues to support seasonal staffing. They do have their one summer student to assist with youth programs, seasonal activities, and likely at the skate park. Contracted services are generally used to bring in specialized instructors for programs that require a particular skill or certification. Example would be yoga. So this approach allows the town to offer a broader range of programs without the need for permanent staff in those areas, and it is operated on a cost recovery basis. So what that cost ends up being, we do charge enough to kind of recoup the total cost for that. Community Services also manages service grants, or several grants to local organizations. So you do see that listed out there. $30,000 goes to the historical village. $10,000 go to recreation, culture, and tourism initiatives. $3,000 goes to sport tourism. $20,000 goes to elemental energy. So that is the grant that they give us, and we grant that immediately right back out. As well as we've added in $5,000. It was originally last year just for pool, but we have expanded that to also include Pace Bus passes. So this is $5,000 that we internally grant out One of the big changes is that we received that $20,000 for elemental energy, and people were applying for a pool pass, so it felt a bit that we were taking that elemental energy and putting it into the pool revenue. So we decided that, no, we were going to take $5,000 and grant that out separately to further have that $20,000 go a little bit further, right? And this year, obviously, with the lack of the pool being open, so the Pace Bus Passes has kind of increased in that requirement. So in this department, we have a transfer to reserve, which is for the joint use. So again, like a number of other reserve ones, this is not a fixed amount. Whatever money we come in, so I guess, let's start from the beginning. So the joint use is, we have an agreement with the schools to utilize their facilities and mainly the gyms. And that revenue that we receive back goes into the joint use revenue line. And then we have an expense line. So let's say the schools, they need new volleyballs or they want new net, or a few years ago we bought a score clock. Then we take those expenses. So the transfer to the joint use reserve is the net of those two. So we have our revenue, we take our expenses out, and the balance we transfer to reserve. If we've overspent 1 year, we do have a joint use reserve. We actually get to pull money out, so that does not become an impact on our tax budget. So the revenue we receive or any expenses we pay for kind of clears itself out every year.
Question, Mayor Barkley, and just sort of a clarification. So we have an amount of money, $105,000 that we put out in grants for programs that are of the FCSS criteria for prevention. And then we have another $68,000 in grants. Some of it comes from elemental, but other places that we put out into the community for those non-FCSS focused kinds, non-preventative kinds of programs. Okay, thanks.
Correct. The others are more of a culture, leisure, recreation type of focus. I'll just clarify on the joint use reserve as well, that that's specific to our agreement with Chinook's Edge. The Red Deer Catholic agreement works differently in that they collect the revenue themselves and determine how they allocate those funds.
So yeah, and the Joint Use Operating Committee is the committee that kind of approves those purchases for facility equipment. And then again, whatever remains at that positive balance transfers to the reserve to support future joint use needs. So again, if they need to buy some kind of larger things, there is some dollars there for that. And there has been a significant increase to community use revenue for the joint use program with CESD, resulting in a much more funding being available now. So. Okay, so the arena operation covers all year-round duties required to keep the facility safe, functional, and ready for a wide range of user groups who rely on it. So during the winter season, staff manage ice maintenance, resurfacing, cleaning, equipment checks, and preparing the building daily for practices, games, tournaments, and community events. Through the spring and summer months, the arena shifts to dry land use, supporting activities such as lacrosse and ball hockey, as well as potentially some small community rentals. Staff continue to maintain the floor surface, boards, change rooms, and facility systems to accommodate these users. The contracted services portion of the budget includes maintenance of the security, like camera system for the whole facility, professional ice painting at the start of each ice season, as well as board cleaning to maintain safety and visibility. Revenue does help offset some of the operating costs, including the annual contribution for Red Deer County in the amount of $207,000. And then we do look to see a transfer to the infrastructure reserve to help support future kind of arena capital needs in the amount of $100,000. Okay, we'll move on to the aquatic center. So, currently closed. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, no, just kidding. So the aquatic center is scheduled to reopen in kind of early 2026, kind of second quarter, April-ish, April, May. And the next few months, we'll focus on preparing that facility, the equipment, and the staff team to kind of ensure a smooth return to operations. So even though the building has been closed during renovations, we do continue to manage a lot of the essential baseline costs, such as utilities, insurance, and a lot of that stuff. In order to keep the facility safe in a ready state, there are staff, not our staff, but people working there that we do need to maintain. As part of the reopening process, we will have to bring back staff a bit earlier, and we'll need to make sure they are fully trained and recertified. So this will include booking space in a different pool likely, sending them away, getting them retrained and certified, and bringing them back. This could also likely have time where we could have quite a few staff meetings going over SOPs, new operational things. Anything that it would take when you open up a new facility, we're going to have a different emergency management program, like all that kind of stuff. So there is definitely some increased costs on staffing at the beginning of the thing, just to kind of go through all this coordination. Also, what will be updated, some supplies and equipment to support day-to-day operations, any new like PPE equipment for staff, updated like rescue or gear for the water, teaching aids and general operational items that were old or removed through the renovation work do now need to be replaced. Ritter County's contribution does remain steady at that similar amount for the arena at $207,000. Yeah, so we're just trying to position ourselves for a successful reopening and in early next year for this department. Yeah.
So Director Vickers, I know this is your PowerPoint presentation, but as we move on budget next week, are we going to go through?
Yeah, we're going to
the
go
tabs?
individually, side by slide.
Yeah.
We will bring up the PowerPoint again, but then focus more on the binder and
Yeah.
going through each slide and then getting into your more detailed questions of
Okay.
specific lines or different programs or things like that.
Okay, just getting a little bit deep into it maybe for now, but like I noticed on the Aquatic Center, the natural gas has increased 20%. Is that because
That's
the-
based on historical usage, transmission
but-
costs, distribution costs.
Okay, I guess I'm just curious because, you know, we've heard there's going to be so much better energy efficiency in the new building, so it's nothing you need to answer right now, but it's just a thought that came to me that we're seeing a 20% increase, and yet we've see vastly improved energy efficiency through the new build, or the new, the modernization, so.
Okay, we can have maybe a slight look into that. I don't know if those numbers are going to be achieved yet. We could just temper that increase forward until we see a full year of actuals, until we can kind of bring that up.
Yeah.
Knowing that the historical actuals are telling us we need to go up. So, but we can wait a year and see where it would be in a new facility with these, you know, better windows, a better like sealed in facility, so there's less heat escape. So we can do that for sure. Should we wait? Okay.
Take 5 minutes?
Sure, let's take a minute.
We'll take 15-minute break?
2 tabs left,
I know, but.
and a little more, but.
Yeah, 2 tabs and then we do have to go in camera for a little bit, but. we're good? Okay. Okay, we're back on. We'll get moving. So we're at the facility slide here now. So the facilities section includes all revenues and expenses related to the town's buildings and any leased facility spaces. So our land leases comes in the land department, but our facility leases comes out of this department. So we do receive an annual contribution from Red Deer County for various facilities in the amount of $18,500. So the facility revenue comes from several town assets, including rentals at the Kemp House, the Curling Club lease, the senior center rent, as well as all rentals at the LLC and community rooms. And these revenues do help offset a portion of the operating costs. This budget here in this department also captures all building repairs and maintenance for town buildings. And regular upkeep is essential to protecting our assets and trying to avoid higher long-term costs. We do have this budget including a transfer to reserve for fleet and infrastructure capital. So for fleet, we have identified a $20,000 need, and then infrastructure capital just to go towards building repairs and maintenance kind of as about $10,000. Okay, so our final department is the library, and so the Innisfil Library is operated independently by the Innisfil Library Board. And the town provides an annual requisition that supports their ongoing operations and service delivery. This requisition has remained consistent for the last couple of years at just under $156,000. In addition to the local library requisition, the town is a member of the Parkland Regional Library System, and Parkland provides a number of services such as interlibrary loans, access to regional collections, some technology supports, and centralized programming resources. And as part of that membership, we do pay a per capita levy annually. So which increases slightly based on population and Parkland approved rates. So Parkland's increase was approved by council on October 14th, 2025, and is having a slight increase of $1,437. So together, these contributions ensure that residents have access to both strong and local library services, and that the broader regional network of materials and programs. So we just have this slide here just as kind of a high-level snapshot of all of our operating projects that are funded within the department or within the whole budget. So 3 at the beginning. So in the council's department, we do have strategic planning. So this is the works that are going to happen in January with a proctor. We're also going to be doing a council communication workshop throughout the year at some point, focusing on both emergency communications as well as just general council communications. And we do have a $15,000 budget for committee review. So this is the council committee review. This is so we can have an external contractor come in and do a review and provide us some kind of options. We do see that second tier of the Fire Services Master Plan is sitting in at $25,000. If you remember, year one coming in 2025 was at $35,000, so this kind of just closes up that stuff. $10,000 for our fire cadet program. We have $5,000 for our annual emergency coordination exercise. $100,000 for sidewalk repairs. $20,000 for valve asphalt repairs. I don't know if that's manhole or not. $15,000 for tree replacement. We have $50,000 for leak detection and manhole I&I. You can see that $25,000 cemetery one for concrete runners. Woodlands area structure plan for $70,000, and again, just remind you that that is not tax funded. We are pulling from reserves for that project. We have the marketing of the industrial lands at $20,000, and then the power of place update for $80,000. And again, $50,000 of that $80,000 is coming from this last year, so only $30,000 is really kind of requiring tax funding. So we do have a couple of unfunded items that we have been talking about. So the first 2 items have been items that have been requested by the public. So the first item was STARS. STARS was here a little while ago, and they did kind of a presentation of STARS and what they've done the past year and how they've serviced the people of Innisfil and this is the people of Alberta. Have requested a requisition. They did used to request a per capita amount. After we kind of did the upgrades to the heliport, they kind of downgraded that to just kind of any amount that council would see fit. This request has come in every year, and the past couple of years, council has kind of denied that request just simply because of the investment into the heliport that we still do. We still have a department that funds around that $46,000 into that heliport to manage that. We just recently received a request, and it is actually in your council packages for full review for Monday. We received a request from Red Deer River Watershed Alliance at a 50-cent per capita thing. So that would be roughly around a $4,000 payment if we were to give what they wanted. The next item is a citizens' perspective survey. So if anyone may remember, in 2021, we did a citizens' perspective survey through the company called Ipsos to try and gather some kind of information from the public on how they felt we were doing with all of our service levels and things like that. It did happen in 21 with the thought that we would do it again in 2023. It was denied by council just due to funding constraints. So we are putting it back on the list again, thinking that it's a 4 years later, kind of mimicking council kind of terms, that we would be looking to do it again. Should it be kind of canceled again, we'll probably kind of tuck it away and probably not bring it up anymore, just because we do kind of want some more consistent statistics if we want to keep bringing this kind of up. So the next item was initially in, and then we kind of chose to take it out and put it onto the wish list. It is a downtown light project. It would be a $50,000 project split over 2 years, so 25 and 25. This would to then further enhance kind of Christmas lights, wrapping the trees specifically, and Director Jenkins can give a bit more details on that as well.
Sure, so we would do essentially the 2 blocks from the Legion down to Fast Gas. Right now we have the overhead, the strands just on either side going light post to light post. This would be going to having the trees individually wrapped, trunks up into the top. The string lights have worked well the last few years, but as the trees get larger, it becomes harder for park staff to maintain them, and they get kind of tangled and unplugged in the branches. So looking just to continue that project. You will see, starting later this evening, we do have, there's 3 trees in front of Darkwoods as well as 5 adjacent to the cenotaph that are wrapped in the same style that we would be looking to continue this. So we would do the first block, sort of Legion to Bankers Corner in 2026, and then the next block to the west would be the 2027 component.
So the next unfunded budget consideration would be supports for an ICF agreement update. So we're kind of earmarking around $50,000 for that cost. We also have our art policy implementation. So if council remembers, earlier this year, we did bring forward an art program policy which was approved. At that time, we did not have any dollars to kind of support that program. So this is that. So it does need approximately $85,000 to kind of deal with that program. 65 of that specifically for a staff member, and then 20,000 of that to either do granting out or contractors or things like that. And also, as I identified on the economic development slide, we did remove a supports or sponsorship kind of number for $15,000. We removed it and then popped it in onto the wish list for council consideration.
Director Vickers, can I ask you about the ICF, like that amount? We need to work on that in 2026, of course. Like, is that legal fees or?
Pardon me?
What is the $50,000?
It's basically to get legal to support us in negotiation with Red Deer County, to get legal support, making sure the agreement that's being proposed, usually driven by Red Deer County, aligns up with the legislation and meets the best interests of council.
No, fair enough. Thank you. So,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the CEO Becker again. So that's on a wish list. I mean, but we do need to do the ICF in 2026. So if that's on the wish list and not on a funded list, then what?
Basically, it'd be, Mayor Barclay, your question, it'd be same as the current agreement. It was delivered by Red Deer County through their legal. We would review it administratively to our best ability, and then move it to recommendation to council. We'd just be missing that finer detail review by legal counsel.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Okay, so the next sets of slides are in-camera slides. So we'll just pop into in-camera.
So,
Okay, so thank you, council. So that's kind of the end of our in-camera section, and then we are functionally done the slides for the presentation today. So we have about 15 more minutes or 14 more minutes now until kind of our meeting today is done. So just any further comments that you would have for administration before, that we can take away for the weekend and then come back on Tuesday?
sure. We'll go around the loop. How's that,
That
Councillor
would be
Wing?
perfect.
I can start at the other end or in the middle.
I have so many things to say.
Then say them.
No, I think I'm good. I guess just one comment coming out of the work that we did in the last term relative to the new municipal development plan. Anything that we talk about relative to whether it's already funded or whether it's on the wish list, if we could just make sure we have that conversation next week around saying, yes, this is something so for example, the downtown lights. If we talk about that, I'd like to talk about, well, we talked about extending the downtown relative to the MDP. So, if we're going to spend any money next year, maybe it's something based on the MDP. So just because we put 2.5 years into that baby, I'd like to just make sure we don't lose it. And then just one more point for next week. We have an interesting relationship with the library, and I know we have a section, a cost center in our budget relative to the library, but some of the contribution that we give them is relative, it's a gift in kind relative to the cost for the facility, like rent, for example. So if we could just have that number too, I think for new council and our new library board member. Okay, so the amount, okay, so then for clarity, the amount that comes from the county, when we send the money that we've allocated in our budget to the library, that includes the county's contribution?
So we receive the county contribution and we give the library what they've asked for. So it's not like we give them the 156 that they've asked for from us plus the county contribution. The county contribution just offsets our costs.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Just on that note though, so when there is a form that I fill out for the library every year so that they have to send it off to their own, and it does include other in-kind services that we need to, so the cleaning of the facility, like that kind of maintenance.
Yeah.
So there is numbers there that we provide to the library on top of the 156 direct contribution.
Okay.
Would you like to see those?
Yeah, when we
Yeah.
do that cost center next week, I think everyone would be nice to know how much we
Yeah.
actually contribute in that way.
Because, yeah, we do provide custodial
That's right, yeah.
utilities.
That's what I thought,
Essentially,
yes.
everything except
Security.
for their internet and
we don't pay
phones,
their-
they deal
Right,
with that
right.
stuff.
So the value of that would be interesting.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Strong.
Just a question to Director Vickers. I know at the last council meeting you mentioned getting rid of going to the cloud and that sort of thing. That will be brought up through the budgeting. We'll be able to see those costs.
To the cloud, like for
Yeah.
our finance?
Yeah, like anything, getting away from service and hard.
Yeah, so a part of our finance changeover going to the cloud, you'll see that in the capital budget. So that is a capital project that we're asking for.
And the other thing, just on that, again, it's just my nerd in me coming out. There was quite a large number for computers and that sort of thing. Would we get a bit more of a breakdown on what that looks like?
Around the technology, because most
Yeah.
of that is less computers, more like the different costs of what they fund.
Certainly,
Okay,
please.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I guess really the only questions I have, they're more just on our cost of borrowing interest rates. I know they obviously changed depending on, potentially on values, I'm not sure, but just want to know kind of what are the interest rates on borrowing for, substantial projects, as well as just wanting to know kind of like, I understand we have our restricted or reserves, but what kind of interest rates do we actually get on the reserves? Just to kind of understand, if a person was able to fund something from our reserves, what kind of interest are we forfeiting from trying to save interest on what we're already, our cost of borrowing? That's just those two pieces, if that was at all possible.
So just a quick question. So for the cost of borrowing, do you mean what we're actually paying now for the Southwest Industrial as well as our line of credit?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
just to understand those interest rates,
Okay.
just to give us
Yep.
that little piece of the puzzle that we might need.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Hill. Councillor McKellar.
Mayor Barkley, yeah, no real questions, just going away with a lot to digest. The questions will start coming in
I
Tuesday.
anticipate after you've read this cover to cover, memorized it, right, you'll have lots of questions after, so.
I got lots of
Am I the
time
only
this
one that
weekend.
memorizes it? No, I'm just kidding.
Go ahead, Councillor Russell.
Mayor Barkley, I already mentioned I'd like to see that surplus year-by-year comparison for the last, going back, because I know you can't go back forever, but several years
How
at least.
many years, like 5?
I'd like to see 5-year trend, if that's possible. I know it might be a lot of work to put on you between now and Tuesday, but
okay.
the other thing is, in our package, there were some slides in here that I'd like to see.
I will print off the entire package for anyone who wants it and then provide it to everyone.
Yes,
So
yeah,
that you can
the
put it, there is a
PowerPoint.
spot in the binder to put it. So.
Yeah, that would be great if you could do that.
Does everyone want a copy? It's just a lot of paper. Yes, 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 yes.
The one other question, we didn't really go into the reserve section, the tab. I assume we're going to do that next week. We'll go
That will
through
be calculated.
committed versus non-committed and all those type of things.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Hystad.
Thanks, Your Worship. No, I have nothing to ask. I think we're going to have a busy week, and it will be a good week. Thank you.
So we're good?
Well, what about you?
I never have, no, nothing. You already gave me heck, so no.
Okay, well, great.
Okay, all right, so thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone. Yeah, we're good to go, and we'll see everyone bright and early at 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning.
Well, we'll see you Monday, and
Well, okay.
we'll see you at the
okay.
Christmas tree.
Maybe. Well, I'll see you tonight. I will
Yeah,
see you tonight
okay.
because I'm
See you at
coming.
the tree lighting,
Yes.
actually.
Okay, fine. I'll see you a bunch of
All right.
times.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you. Okay.